Hi, we're going to make our chocolate roll today. This is the most requested recipe that I make from my family. My daughter-in-law Phyllis wanted it at her engagement party 26 years ago. My grandson-in-law Cliff, Courtney's father, wants it for his birthday every year. However, he doesn't always get it for his birthday every year because it is filled with whipped cream and his birthday happens to be in July. So if he's here, he may get it, but if he's at home and we go there, or my daughter's, I probably won't take it because it will not travel well in the summer filled with whipped cream. You can carry it in the winter, you can serve it in the summer, but don't take it on a long trip. It needs a jelly roll pan, and we've talked about that before. This is a very good size pan for many things, because if you don't have one and you get one, you not only can use it for jelly rolls, or in this case a chocolate roll, you can also use it for cookies, you can use it for roasting vegetables, and if you're nesting all your pans, it'll go right between your 13 by 9s and your cookie sheet. So it's a very useful pan, and you really need it for a roll like this. This is parchment paper lined, and what I do is just put the pan down on parchment paper, go around it with a pencil, then cut it out with scissors until it fits the inside. And you'll have to make it smaller than what you actually outlined. You put it in a dish, but I also put little dabs of butter or grease or something under it to hold that paper down while I lightly grease the top of the paper. And then I put it aside. The other thing you'll need for this cake, because when it comes out it's going to be a long roll, is I've had this dish probably 15 years and I love it. It's perfect for this roll. We're going to start by beating egg whites until they are stiff with some cream of tartar in there. And the reason, remember in a recipe, there's always a reason why they have steps in a certain order. We're going to be beating the egg whites and we're going to be beating the egg yolks. The egg whites must be beaten in an absolutely clean bowl with dry beaters and nothing else in there. So we have 5 egg whites here and 1/2 teaspoon of cream of tartar. Cream of tartar comes in a little container. It's probably years old, and I think I only use it when I'm making meringues or this chocolate roll. It's not something you're going to really use a lot other than that. This is the wire whip. You know, I say don't buy a lot of useless things when you start to bake, but boy, a stand mixer. I can't imagine being a baker baking a lot without a stand mixer, and the KitchenAid is really good. It is a workhorse. So we're going to put the egg whites in the beater and we're going to start beating them. After they get frothy and start to thicken, we're going to put sugar in. We're going to put that in there and we're going to secure it. Okay. We're going to start at a lower, bring it up. I didn't realize all these expressions I use, and one of them is I'm going to let it rip, and that means we're going to put it at a really high speed. Now, Courtney, I want you to get one of those 1/2 cups of sugar ready. I think you can start putting some in. That's terrific. Just keep it up at that rate. Even a little more. Okay, that's good. Very good. Look what 5 egg whites will turn into with a little cream of tartar, some sugar, and a lot of beating. And it is nice and stiff. It stands up, but it's not overly dry. You really have to be careful with egg whites if you're not adding sugar, because it is easy. If they get too over whipped, they will start to separate and you won't be able to really use them well. But once you put the sugar in, it's really good. And this is really nice and stiff. We're going to put that aside for a minute. And as I told you, I'm just going to sort of brush off that whisk because the yolks are not as fussy. They don't care if there's a little egg white on there. And we have 5 egg whites in there. I'm sorry, egg yolks. And we're going to just beat them until they're nice, thick, and yellow. And this is our beaten egg yolks. Now we have our dry ingredients, and there's really not very much. Courtney, would you please measure 3 tablespoons of cocoa in the sifter. We're going to sift some things together. And Courtney's going to show you when you're going into something like baking powder, cocoa, do it against the side will be harder. That will give it, yes, and that gives you a nice level tablespoon. She makes sure that she puts it all into the strainer, and we need 3 tablespoons. And now we need a 1/4 cup of flour. So we want to put the flour in. We want to put 1/4 teaspoon of salt. There we go. And a 1/2 cup of sugar. And if you would just stir that through, yes. Yep, and you can use the spoon to sort of help it. And that's exactly what I do, is I knock it against the side. Now, we're going to mix that in with the egg yolks, and let's use a bigger spatula. Just dump the whole thing in. And I want a teaspoon of vanilla. So I'll put that in. Everything tastes better with vanilla. And just stir that all together. And I always say, if you can, of course I have a helper today, so it's a little easier. It'll be so much better if you can clean up as you go along. It can start to get very daunting, especially if you're doing a number of things and all of a sudden you're surrounded by all this stuff. So if you can kind of get it out of the way and clean up as you go along, you'll find it's less overwhelming. And let's look at that mixture, Courtney. Fold that mixture into the egg whites. That's impossible, folks. It is way too thick. The answer to that is simpler than you think. We take a big glop of the egg whites and stir it in. Don't even try to fold it, just stir it, because we just want to lighten it up. Now, after she's done stirring, we're going to fold the rest. When you fold things, you are trying to keep the air that you have beaten in. That's usually egg whites or whipped cream. Now, you see, by putting some of it in, it's going to be much easier than the other. The other was just way too stiff. So I'm going to put it in and put the rest in to the egg whites. As you can see, I mean, there was very little to this cake. People fold kind of in different ways. The method that I've come up with that seems to work for me is to go down in the middle, come up on the side, turn. Down in the middle, come up in the side, turn. And I just keep doing it until the mixture all looks the same. Our cake is out. I should have shown you when it first came out because it was puffier. But it says let it sit 5 minutes, and in that 5 minutes it has sunk some and it has started to come away from the pan, which is fine. Because now what I have to do is separate it out. I have to cut it out of the pan and I have to turn it out onto a confectioner sugar lined cloth. Now remember, it's a long rectangle now, but eventually this is going to be rolled. So there are certain things that you have to do to accomplish that. So we'll take that away for a minute. I'm going to put out this cloth. Oh, this is one of my pretty ones. This is from Queensland, Australia. You know how I love to collect tea towels from all over. And now I have my 10x sugar here somewhere. Now we're going to sprinkle this generously with the confectioner sugar. And that's going to do 2 things. It's going to give a little extra sweetness to the cake when it's rolled up, because some of it will stay on the cake, but it'll also make it easier to unroll. We're going to turn it out. Well, we think we're going to turn it out. I've never had this problem. And now I'm going to peel the parchment paper off it. And be careful when you peel it because it is a very soft cake. We're going to let it sit on this towel. Now we're going to let it cool till it's lukewarm but not totally cool. And the reason for that is if I let it cool entirely this way and then I try to fill it and roll it, it may break. It may crack as you try to roll it. But if you let it cool rolled and then unroll it, you can fill it and roll it back up. Our cake is cooled, rolled up on the rack. So we'll move the rack. We'll unroll the cake. Remember, folks, when you're done with this and you go to put the towel in the wash, try to take it somewhere and roll it out first. Okay, now this is what we're going to do. We're going to put that cream, and then I'm going to attempt to roll it. Now, if it stays broken and won't come up, I'll have a problem. There's a very good chance it'll just take care of itself. So we'll see. I whipped 1 cup of heavy cream with just really a sprinkling of 10x sugar, because there's going to be sugar in the cake from the 10x on the towel. When you whip cream, start low. As you start to, and do it with your wire whip if you have it, you're whipping air into that cream and it will double in amount. So when you first start, you're going to see little beads come up along the side and with the whip, and that's fine. But if you bring it up too fast, too quick, you'll see those beads go higher and higher, and pretty soon they're on you. So we're just going to put that all over the cake. Boy, I'm hoping for the best here, folks. Okay, now, let's all say a prayer, folks. We're going to go up and over and over and over and over. We're going to finish the chocolate roll now. This is a glossy, kind of a bittersweet frosting that goes on top. It's very interesting because it's not like any other frosting I make. And occasionally I will also put it on the chocolate bundt cake instead of the other one. And it is a 1/2 cup of sugar, a 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch, 1 square of unsweetened chocolate, and that comes in blocks that you have to break up into smaller things. And then I think it's a dash of salt and a 1/2 cup of really hot water, because then it'll cook faster. And what I'm going to do is just put this over the stove, and the chocolate will melt and the cornstarch will thicken it, and then we'll put it on the cake. Our mixture has thickened over the stove. You can see how thick the cornstarch made it. We're going to enrich it now with a 1.5 tablespoons of butter. I'll cut that when it gets in there, I guess. And a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. And a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. And this is a teaspoon, so I'm only going to fill it half full. And we're going to stir that in. Now, I put the cake back in the refrigerator so it would have a chance to cool. And now I'm going to put this warm, hot frosting on it. If you let it go too long, it won't move, and you want it to move. You want to put it on top, but you want it to move. So I'm going to basically put it on top, and it'll drift a little bit. And then you put it back in the refrigerator. As I said, it's a wonderful cake to have, but it does not travel well in the warm weather because of the whipped cream. And we're going to put it back in the refrigerator to get a little colder. And Courtney's dad is going to get a treat because it is winter. And when Courtney goes home tonight, she can take some chocolate cake to her dad. And I thank you very much for visiting. It's always our pleasure to see you. I never know where to watch. He's always going, so I'll try to shape up. Thank you for visiting the kitchen. Yes, subscribe, they tell me. I sound like a magazine. So it's good to see you again, folks. Bye-bye. Put it in the refrigerator for me, please.
Like that.
Oh, well, you can look